everybody, how's it going? So today I want to talk about what you should be reading to maximize your language learning at whichever level you're on. This is something that people get hung up on all the time. I don't know about you, but I always overshoot. I always pick up these massive classics to read, then I get maybe 3 pages into it and I realize I have no idea what's going on. And the worst part is that I know as I'm waiting in line to pay for these books, I know that I'm overshooting, because if I can't even understand these books in English, which happens, why would I understand them in a different language? So here are some out-of-the-box ideas on improving your reading comprehension, hopefully without boring you. So for beginners, it is so frustrating to constantly be recommended children's stories when you're a beginner. Ma'am, I'm a full adult. I find myself getting so bored. Because the thing is these books are catered towards children. The other thing is that unless they're for like infants, there's usually a very niche vocabulary that you can get out of them. For example, I see a lot of kids' books about like pirates or mermaids or wizards or fairy princesses, which is great, but I don't know how often I need to talk about dragons. I mean, hey, maybe it comes up. I'm thinking books like Dr. Seuss, The Phantom Tollbooth, if that was also a part of your childhood. There's a lot of play on words, and for a beginner, frankly, even for an advanced learner, that can be tricky and not really worth your while. Although these books are very cute and very witty, they are also very stressful for potential learners. This is the time you should be focusing on prescriptive language. That is the kind of language you learn in textbooks. In English, it's the Queen's English. It's the received pronunciation without slang, intense honorifics, with a whole bunch of stuff. So for that, I recommend watching news segments, and I know you might be thinking, well, how does that help my reading? You go to YouTube or whatever site and you watch these news segments and you put the subtitles on, because the thing is, if there are subtitles, your eye will be drawn to that more so than what they're talking about, and frankly, the visual usually isn't riveting. What I like about news segments is that they have to speak in a very slow, very accessible register for anyone watching to understand them. And plus, it can keep you updated with current events. You can get educated with things that are happening in that country or that region or whatever. I would also advise you, especially if you're going on YouTube, to then read the comments below the news segment. You have the vocabulary, you have the content. Now you are prepared to go into a little bit of everyday speech, that descriptive language. It's a good warm-up, I'd say, to see how people really speak and how they interact with the language when presented with it. And naturally, with the subtitles and the visual aid, you're much more likely to understand what's going on. In addition to this, for beginners, I definitely recommend focusing on shorter texts, focusing mainly on ones that potentially are interesting to you. So these could be newspaper headings, and if you find that you understood maybe 70-80% of just that, line or two of the heading of the article, maybe you can go into the article and scan the rest and see how much you get out of it. Now, if you're a beginner, even if you're an intermediate or advanced, you really have to be prepared to not understand everything or even most everything. And that's why I definitely recommend at this stage shorter things. That could be those little Instagram infographics, that can be memes, although that gets into different territory because you get into jokes, you get into puns. While memes are funny, sometimes the language can go over one's head. Basically, you need to find something that can maintain your interest and present you with a 70% plus understanding. So short readings on general topics, because you're still trying to learn general vocabulary, you need to be geared with general speech. I would not recommend looking into your more niche interests. For me, I really find myself interested in the Russian Revolution. I would not, as an A1 learner of Russian, go and look up history books in Russian about this context, because one, I'm not likely to understand it, and two, even if I do, my recommendation is to save your more niche interests for later. For intermediate learners, my very, very first recommendation, and you might hate me for this, fan fiction. Whatever pop culture thing you're interested in, people probably write about it. And they probably write about it in your target language. You'd be surprised. You can look into some graphic novels. I always find that having images in addition to text, especially short text, to be incredibly helpful. Why do you think they produce so many of those like picture dictionaries for children and for not children? Here I will direct you to a website called Thrift Books. It is the college student's dream. I have saved myself a couple $100 on textbooks across many terms. I have also bought an embarrassing amount of books from this site. This tip is not anything new, but I would definitely suggest also looking into Netflix shows. And make sure that the subtitles are not on your native language, but your target language. If it's on your native language, you're not gonna learn anything. You're not gonna get anything out of that. You might as well just watch the whole thing in your native language. My final tip for intermediate learners is to buy your favorite classics or your favorite books or your favorite whatever in this language. Because if you buy your favorite book, you read it in your target language, you don't have to worry about what's going on. You don't have to worry about trying to figure out the plot. You just have to worry about catching up with the vocabulary and seeing how that language is used in the context of your favorite stories. I've read The Hobbit in German, and let me just say, incredible. It's almost like this language was meant for fantasy, meant for fairy tales, folk tales. I could go on about that forever. I fell in love with the language all over again reading The Hobbit, which is an English book in German. Would recommend. This intermediate area, I'm gonna do a video about the intermediate plateau, but one thing I totally recommend is this is where you start to get into like the little corners, the little niche corners of your interests. One thing that can shoot you to the advanced level is when you can start put into detail an advanced topic and you can explain that in the target, because that proves mastery. On to advanced. So this section is going to be short. All I can say is consume whatever interests you. The goal here is to maintain the language. You've done the hard work. Now you just gotta have fun with it. In this section, if you're advanced, I definitely recommend interacting with the media of that country. Now here's where like memes work. You can look at blogs, you can listen to slang, hopefully understand it. YouTubers are perfect, especially little ones like me. But anyways, folks, these are just a few short tips. I hope you enjoyed and that you got something out of this, and if you didn't, let me know. Drop me a comment if you have any questions. I hope you are having a wonderful educational day, and I'll see you soon. Love you, bye.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.